You have mixed. I met a doctor. I was buying curtains for my house, and the guy talked to me. So, hey, Dr. Buko, how are you? I said, hey, how come you know me? I was there, Chiembele, they are thinking I'm lost and nobody knows me. Kumbe, he was a doctor selling curtains. But for him, he never bothered to do internship. He just finished medical school. He said, when I looked at the salaries, I said, But that was before the new salaries we fought for. Okay, so the second stakeholder is you'd call them your clients, but they are stakeholders, the young doctors, especially the young lawyers who feel you seniors are squeezing them and giving them only transport as they put on suits and they bring the cases and they crack the midnight oil. When the billion comes, you take 900 million, then you give your 100 lawyers 100 million to share. These are the things you must talk about honestly. The third stakeholder are the powerful people. In your case, of course, it's the government, the central government you must work with. You're a law society established by an act of parliament. There is no way you're going to avoid government. You better be friendly. At best, you exchange friendly fire. Isn't it? And even if you talk tough on television here, you make sure after the talk show, you call the guy and say, man, now, I had to look tough, but I'm sorry. Now, how can we, because this is just politics. Because you see, you have also to attract, and speak truth, but after that, people are going to be annoyed. You call them and say, now, please, how can we? Because I saw scenarios which I thought could have been better managed. When your new president came in, I saw the Chief Justice refusing him to speak. That was not good, because you are both lawyers. What's wrong with you guys? In public, no. That's why the attorney general should have left him to speak, except to lower his size. But after that, you tell him, now, Semakado, I allowed you to speak. I'm really very annoyed with you. And also Semakado say, okay, I'm sorry, but that kind of thing. Because, you need to. Then, so those are the power centers. The others, of course, are the unseen important people. For us, for instance, we discovered that we needed to proceed in a sane way when we are engaging the state. How? One, when you are younger, and I was quite young, I was in my 30s, you want to march on the street. The Musevenis in their 20s were in the bush doing internship in Mozambique, The internship was rebel activities with his brother and so on. So we discovered the young doctors like to march, They like the radical approach, which is also good. But in so doing, we discovered we needed stakeholders like lawyers. And this is where we met Nicholas Opio and so on, so to guide us. We were shy to engage we were happy to engage civil society, but we were shy to engage donors because of the stance of this government. Once you go and meet the American ambassador, who is willing to meet you and listen to your grievances and perhaps convey them, you may be viewed as saboteurs. You know how this government positions itself. For example, during the Anti-Homosexuality Act arguments, those who are anti were viewed as pro-West. So we attempted to position ourselves in that delicate balance. So yes, how do you do it? I mean, formally, but more importantly, informally. We changed our conferences from the annual scientific, because we had too much science, and science had its limitations. Science needed politics to drive the science into the policy processes. But even when you drive into the policy processes, you needed the politics to activate the policy. A policy can be written, everybody can talk about it, but to implement it sometimes needs money. So what did we do? We organized what would be equivalent to the annual law year, maybe, I don't know. We call it the Grand Doctors Conference. We have the annual General Assembly, but in the General Assembly it is full of bureaucrats. They massage things. They are all in government and they are talking nice. Okay, they can be tough, but within the bureaucracies and public service standing orders. The Grand Doctors Conference wanted it ambitious. That's why we said grand. We needed to first of all brand it in a way that every doctor, from the one in the making, a medical student, to the retired. In fact, the first one, we even had a section where we put the wazee who had retired to sit. You know, Professor Maswa, the first doctor, Professor Dabella, who is now 92, you know, the first cardiologist in Kampala, and so on. They are there, plus the interns, to meet and interact and compare notes and say, hey, why is it in the 1970s, when we are told Amin was so bad, the doctors were eating grapes for breakfast and the sunny side up? But now, when the money is okay, the economy is the fastest growing. I see the PSST posting, you know, the fastest growing. Why is it that, you know, internship is full of suffering? So that interaction. The third element we wanted to do was to create that political platform where we would call it the actual decision makers. And after food, we talk the African way. You drink, you eat, and you discuss, and decisions are made, not in a policy brief, not in a boardroom, but over dinner. So we invited people like the president himself. In fact, he was very happy, because when he came, he ate. After eating, he saw his age mates there, Professor Zarubara and so on. He interacted with them. So by the time we finished, he made very important promises. For example, he declared and he gave a recurrent budget of over $1 million to pay for senior house officers. These are the ones doing masters of medicine training. You know, our training is actual. You have to treat people. It's not books. But they were not being paid. So they were working for government and clearing all of those lines. They are the first line especially, but they were not being paid. So in one dinner, the president declared, we followed it up quickly with parliament, because the guy in charge of parliamentary committee on it was there also. The minister was there. Are you seeing how things are being sorted? The advantage with all your meetings, when I see them, all these powerful people are there. Chief Justice is there. Solicitor General is on the left. Attorney General is there. Law Society President is there. So why are there these things? This is a question you must answer. I think for me, those are the things I would, yeah.
I told you, if you're just joining us, Riding the Tide with Dr. Ekwaro Obuku, and I told you that the doctor is going to give us the diagnosis and the prescription. He's going to put us under the surgical knife, and he's going to use the surgical skills to really cut us open in every single direction. And I think you will agree with me that I was right. I just wanted to, if you're just joining us, there are a number of things we've had. We've had that we should focus on the people. You said something very interesting. You said a judge is a moving health center. You know,
a moving court. Equivalent would be a moving magistrate's court, maybe grade 1. You know what I mean? Because the cost.
I think a health center is much better. But it's a moving health center with a dentist, with a dentist and nurses and that's actually the cost. I said that number one stakeholder is the people, and that we must identify with the people. We're having a serious challenge across our sector in terms of identifying with the people. And that's why there's some of these pulling and pushing, because some things have to be said about the people. You know, we have a situation where more than 40 trillion shillings, according to the judiciary, themselves is held up in litigation. We have, according to the judiciary, the average remand time. If you are accused right now of killing somebody and you are sent to jail, it is unlikely that you will spend less than 2 years on remand. Accusations have become convictions. Interest is rising. Land disputes, the one you're telling us, Kabali, of your mother, the actual average story is 7 to 10 years of people in land disputes. And we're going to come to a lot of that. I must say that the Law Society may have been a bit ahead of you, because the Law Society actually for years has been running what we call legal aid clinics. In fact, one of the first employees of the legal aid clinic visited us here. Currently, that gentleman has a job as the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, the Honorable Norbert Mao. When he finished his legal education, his first form of training was in the Uganda Law Society as the first employee of the Uganda Law Society's legal aid project. So if people have any problems with him, they should blame us as the Law Society, because and if people are happy with him, they should also blame us as the Law Society. So we are. I think there's a lot that really you've told us. The power is in the people. We should deal with powerful people as well. Young lawyers, I must inform you that the young lawyers have become a very serious phenomenon. They even have in the East African Law Society, not just in this one, a Secretary General for young people. And that Secretary General is none other than Mr. Alfred Muyaka, who is sitting right here, or at least representing Uganda. But you see, the doctor, when we think of the medical association, you're talking about handling people, handling situations better, making sure. You gave the example of the Chief Justice. When we think of the medical association, I don't know what comes to many people's minds, but for many people, we know that at least at a certain point in the year, as the budget is being written, there's a certain time in the parliamentary calendar where there's a strike of interns that the medical association is organizing. I think this year we've missed that strike. I've been waiting for the strike this year, and I've seen that doctors haven't gone on strike. Teachers may have, but I think doctors this year haven't gone around budgetary times, media, or either a academic cycle. I think when people are starting their internships or ending them, and I think a lot of in the Law Society there's this new phrase of bang the table. Yeah, and I think nobody has been a bigger table banger than the Uganda Medical Association. Although you're telling us to have these good relations, for us we don't strike. In fact, the only time we had the strike was recently in Masaka, where the lawyers were striking on behalf of the judges, because the judge had about 7,000 cases as backlog. I don't remember the number. The judge had a number of cases, and we did the math here, and we discovered that it would take that judge, if she had nothing else, and if she was listening to and delivering about 5 judgments a day, 5 judgments a week, it would take her 28 years. So she was not being reinforced, so the Masaka lawyers kind of put down their tools, but maybe let me not say that back, but in the end it got some traction and the judiciary stepped in and did some things. But generally for us, we don't strike, but you guys really strike. So maybe you can tell us about these strikes, this table banging, and also how come this year doctors are not striking?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I wanted to just go back to the legal aid clinic. Yeah, the legal aid clinic, I just want to know about the numbers, because I don't know about it. I've never touched base. No one around me has benefited from it. We, as I said, we also come, as I told you, and in reality, not this one of Norbert Mao and 3 colleagues going to Gulu and sorting it out. No. For example, the one in West Nile, there were 100 doctors. They part here at Mandela, and we want to thank Mandela so much. Mandela, the guy of Mandela Milling and Javas. We have breakfast at Javas. He sponsors. Then another one puts fuel. Another one gives us buses. Doctors provide their labor and technical expertise. Move like 100. Go to West Nile, spend 10 days. And this year they combed, I think, almost 3,000 surgeries. You know what I mean? From lumps, small lumps, to hysterectomies, removing of the uterus, to surgery, orthopedic surgeries. Now then we do mass immunization, clear the backlog. We do HIV testing and screening. So if you are to have impact now, like that one of striking in Masaka, you sit down with the judiciary, you sit down with the speaker. The 2 speakers are lawyers, by the way, and I had even the speaker got a first class. So you see, with a first class, sit down and say, Madam, please give us $1 billion, 2-3 judges plus lawyers, go and camp in Masaka and reduce that log of 3,000 cases to 1,500. And then you team up with your former president, the Gimara, who started that Center for Alternative Dispute Resolution and said this one goes to Gimara, this one, you triage them, and so that's what I was talking about.
Yes.
Now, why have doctors not gone on strike this year? One, the strike commonly used to be about the young doctors, medical interns. We've got a new Director General of Health Services, Dr. Olaro Charles. Before I dive into the rest, let me just say a few things about Dr. Olaro Charles. He's a blessing to the health sector. Why? Director General of Health Services. Is equivalent to, I think, the Chief Justice, I believe, or the Attorney General, something like that. It's a constitutional job. It could not be abolished when they abolished directors because it's constitutional. He was, I first met him as the director of Arua Hospital. Arua Hospital. When I was doing my internship, 2003. And this is what he used to do. You're in Kampala here. He tells you, okay, you are coming to Arua, 3 of you or 2 of you, you go to Entebbe, enter the plane. And you know the excitement of entering the plane to go to start. When we reached Arua, you think there are any pending cases? Because when we reached the airport, Arua airstrip or airport, there was a Land Cruiser hard top waiting for us. This is Dr. Laro. As an intern, my father didn't have a Land Cruiser hard top. I entered, I said, hey, I've entered a Land Cruiser. They brought me by plane. Then when I reached there, my room was ready. This is your room, your bed here, food is here. This is 100,000. You know, 2,000. This is 100,000 to start you off. It's not even on your salary. Buy toothpaste, what, go buy a mattress, come back, settle. We'll talk to you tomorrow. By starting tomorrow, you are clearing cases. At night, no woman is left unattended to because you are incentivized. You have been considered important. And this is why I'm not surprised there is no strike. As soon as Dr. Olaro assumed office, he had one mission, I think, to end these strikes. Why? It's like it was part of the, as you said, planning calendar, that around this period they will strike. So this year, no strike. Why? They posted all the interns. You know, there has been an exponential increase on the number of medical schools. We used to have Makerere by 1989 or 1988. Then Mbarara came in, and then Gulu, and then Busitema, and there are all these other private KIU and so on. Some of them, like KIU, of course, they overproduce beyond their capacities. This one is in written reports of the Medical and Dental Practitioners Council. It's not my allegation, and they have tried to control numbers. The private, and it's understandable because for them it's also a business. It must break even. So businessman Basaja Balaba has invested so much. He needs to make a return on investment, but also it can also be viewed as a positive because KIU has managed to triple our numbers in a short time to try and meet the WHO standards. We may quarrel with KIU and the other private about quality and so on, but even among the 100 they produce, they are good quality. And even among the traditional universities, Makerere, Mbarara, Guru, it does not mean that the best doctor, there are no doctors who are not having good, you know what I mean? Because to be a doctor is actually character. More than knowledge is character. To be a good lawyer is discipline. The ethical values of, truth telling, first of all. The work ethic of coming in time. I had a matter in one court, and the first time I went, my friend, I was there at 7, by 8 I was there, 9 came, 10 came, 12 came, they said, the magistrate is not coming today. I said, what? For us when we are looking at law, we remember the movies, where they are arguing, the Pelican Brief, and you think, the reality is different. Yes, you're getting me. So this exponential increase in the number of medical schools is a blessing. There's a silver lining because all of a sudden we have the doctors. Those days, one doctor, my father was the only doctor in Moyo in the 70s. He was the district medical officer and the medical superintendent of Moyo. So I asked him one time, hello, how are you managing? He said, you spend 2 days in the DMO's office, Then 4 days in the hospital operating mothers. He was the only one. And not until recently, by the way, they were heroes of doctors. Where a doctor is also the anesthetic officer. Do you know what I mean? It's like you are the lawyer, but also what is the equivalent? Also the judge, because and then also the prison officer. You know, and the clerk. Let's say the clerk, because the anesthetic officer is very critical. Is the driver who allows you to operate. It's like the engine. You may be the one on the steer wheel operating, and you know, but the engine is the anesthetic officer doing an operation. Why? Because we had just shortages. We had so these universities, but in so doing, they were not moving in tandem with the Ministry of Education. Was not moving in tandem with the Ministry of Health. They are producing what cannot be absorbed. Now, internship is a must. It is like a LDC. It's like LDC. Without LDC, internship. Yeah? And without it, you cannot practice independently. This is among the similarities that we have. Now, the numbers the Uganda was used to could actually fit Mulago. Those days, internship was only in Mulago, I believe. Then it started moving to other areas, and we were slow. It is that mismatch that would cause someone who has paid, say in KIU, over, I don't know, let's say it's 10 million a year, or 7 times 5, 50 million, over 50 million for the course, and then you tell them they can't do internship, meaning actually you're denying them income. You're making them wait 2 years to begin to earn income. And that would cause frustration. Actually, there were suicidal tendencies among frustrated medical interns and parents. I remember a parent calling me and saying, "Doctor, can you talk to my daughter? Can you talk to my daughter and encourage her? She has locked herself in the room. I don't know what she's going to do because she's not on the internship list." So it is quite frustrating to say education is the key, but as people say, did someone lock the padlock and throw away the key? Because doctors by nature, at least those days, they would take the creme de la creme. It was very difficult to get into medical school. You have all these expectations by yourself. Society has these expectations of you, and then they are seeing you sitting down. When you get comments from the traders in Chikubo, you know, the common people doing, other informal work, yeah? Say, "What is the doctors? What's wrong with you? You go there and read. You are earning 2 million and you're on strike." Because for them, maybe they are collecting 20 a day. So even our place in society was beginning to be looked at differently. And all these psychological pressures, expectations from relatives, your own expectations, would lead into this frustration, which would boil into a strike. At one time, government attempted to say, "Okay, we shall deploy all of you, but we will bond you at the end." So doctors, this is when the Semakades came in, the Nicholas Opios came in to sue or to file a case. I don't know that it's a suit. You know, I may give technically wrong. So so this was the prime reason. Now, other than that, what used to cause strike? This was at entry. The other cause of strikes is once you enter, take 6 months to be paid, or 3 months. Those days. Now remember, you have entered. Unlike clerkship, where you'll stop at 5, then come back the next day. For us, when the consultant, who is equivalent of a judge, comes in the morning, says, "Where is the intern? How is the ward?" The ward being the patients, and you're supposed to report about all of them. Now, the government does not care at that time whether you have eaten, where you slept, or if you slept, and your psychological well-being, and that would cause frustrated doctors, young doctors moreover, who have not eaten, who haven't slept, and they are given this responsibility by the senior most person to report. We've had situations where doctors become depressed, clinically depressed. We also have this sadness every once in a while, and sometimes mild depression. But we've had serious cases. We've begun to see one or two attempted suicides because of that frustration. So mentally we were not fine, and therefore to take it out, like the blessing of the youth who are the future. There was a time when the government said securing your future, but it's sort of they had taken away the future. And this is something I'd like to talk about. What we have seen in this country, especially the government being the biggest employer, is that for us, the older generation, we are squandering all of the wealth, big salaries. And if you're in a government, a senior government official, my friend, has all these things that go with him. And that informed our demands for the strike, because at that time the governor, may his soul rest in peace, was earning 54 million plus security and the house. So we also said, okay, since he's keeping papers there in the BOU, those days this electronic money was not so popular, so why can't you give a senior consultant a 5-bedroom house in Kololo, bodyguard also, because he's treating very important people, and 45 million. And of course we became a laughing stock, because we were used to this situation where government takes care of a few people very well until they pass away. And one time when we were advocating for these big salaries, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto, who on Capital Gang, challenged me and said, and she's a lawyer, said, Obuko, by the way, we keep fighting for bigger and bigger salaries and better working conditions for the few in government. What about those who are just looking for jobs? Where will the money come from? And therefore, it is something we need to think about as advocates about the future. Should we concentrate all this money in politics and parliament? Because, of course, the first agenda item is a vehicle. When the new parliament comes in, the next agenda item is to increase allowances. And there are all these other wasteful expenses. So, this observation, that Parliament can get away with 100 million each, and here I am serving Ugandans in Mulago, in Lira Hospital, or Kabale Regional Referral Hospital as an intern, that creates frustration and brings about this striking. And what is the answer? Anti-riot police. So at one time we questioned the authorities that have you ever seen a World Health Organization guideline which says that when a doctor is hungry, you beat them up and the patients will recover? You know what I mean? Yeah, one time we met the president, and because he had said, doctors, I declare they warn you, mothers who are dying, and I instructed RDCs to arrest any. So one time a colleague was in Mbale operating in the theater, and she heard that the health monitoring unit is waiting for her outside. As soon as she finishes, they are going to arrest her, and indeed they arrested her. So when we met the president, we asked him that, Mr. President, have you ever seen an international or Ministry of Health guideline which says when you arrest doctors, mothers will stop dying? The number one reason of death include bleeding. 2, infection, lack of antibiotics, bleeding, lack of blood. They are delaying to reach no ambulances. Instead, you buy ambulances. Instead, ensure blood is there. Instead, refinance national medical stores so that antibiotics are there, because your policy, Mr. President, is free health care for all. But all facilities are free of health care. You know what I mean? We're supposed to give free health care, but instead we are having health facilities free of health care. They are free of doctors. Doctors are not there. They are not enough. Free of nurses, free of pharmacists. Okay? This same thing is in the legal fraternity. Why is it that lawyers are so many, by the way?
But When you said that, what happened? Did they change the budgets and all that?
Yes, I told you they doubled the budget for blood transfusion. The National Medical Stores has increasingly received more and more money. Okay? However, the limitation is that it is not sustainable because of the leaning, the perspective, to make it easier. If government is funding healthcare, the duty of the citizen agency is taken away, because not all citizens pay tax. You know what I mean? So to go to a medical superintendent and say, I had money, came here, where are the medicines, is hard, because the medical reports either to the cow, or the director reports to the DH reports to the, or the director reports to the accounts to PAC. So the citizen agency is removed. What we propose moving forward, and this has been promised severally in the 3 manifestos of the NRM, good enough we have one constant factor, Mr. Museveni, all the time, for people are still paying, either there are no antibiotics, because it can't just be enough. But if we can organize it into what we call risk pooling and resource pooling, then it can be even, and the citizen who is paying even 500 shillings, 1,000, 2,000, can demand. We doctors, we are privileged to serve, but we are not saints. Medical profession, okay? So why don't lawyers strike? My thinking is because the bulk, legal services are driven by private interest. Medical services or health services are viewed from a public interest. Government should look at access to justice as a public good or a public service and invest in that area. That's why last time when I was in your pre-AGM, I challenged the Law Society to push for lawyers to go down to the mode of maybe a barefoot lawyer. I've seen some of the barefoot. I don't know what the intricacies is, but if you have a lawyer, because now we have pushed government to employ doctors at Health Center 3, so on paper it's there. They're saying there is no money. But we see money, we saw money in Kololo a lot. So, if that money of Kololo, which is good politics, by the way, we have always argued to the powers that be, that it's good politics to play the politics of social service delivery. Let's say education, access to education, UPE, more money there. Those are more votes. Health services, food security. But also something that should go hand in hand is access to justice. Because when people cannot agree and the rules are no longer working, then the state can collapse. You saw a situation where someone who is a functionary of the state could proudly say, you know, I can slap you and we'll go to court and nothing will happen. But good enough, the long arm of the law decided also to behave itself. So those are my views. Moving forward, doctors are no longer interested in striking, rather negotiation, because that was an opening ceremony that time. You know, it was after a long time. It was, the last strike was in the 90s, and the president just arrested, beat up. People had to run away. South Africa, where this Chris Baryomusi was a chief striker. It was days in the 90s with Honorable Yomoki and others at large. Because it's provided for, by the way, in the law, that the highest form of negotiation is to withdraw your labor. And even the International Labour Organization filed a case, I think, in the International Court of Justice this year, to give a legal opinion on whether striking still has a place in our field. There was a time lawyers went on strike, only that, you know, lawyer is broad. The magistrates, I remember, were on strike during our strike, and it was so good, because when they took us to court, we said, but you guys, we are together in this thing, and they were very favorable because they understood where we're also coming from. I think if we can't have more judges, then let's have as many magistrates as possible. We should even have acting magistrates to really clear that backlog. I think with this blessing of lawyers, if the cost of lawyers' fees is made accessible to the common person, then even the lawyers can perhaps make a living out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Doctor. I think if you're just joining us, we have about 15 minutes to go. We are riding the tide with Dr. Kwarobuku. And Doctor, I think you've been firing on all cylinders. I must tell you, everything you've said is music to our ears. On these conversations, we have been arguing. We have been arguing for what we call mission-based judges, and now by the Judicial Service Commission. The Commission regulates itself, so it can just see you and say this person should be a judge. They can tap you on interviews, and they are moved by usually two things: that we need more judges, or that there's a vacancy. So some courts have a particular number of judges that should sit on them.
Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court, the Court of Appeal, and the High Court.
Yes.
So for the higher bench, the High Court, Court of Appeal, and Supreme Court, the Judicial Service Commission advises the President to appoint people. The President then looks at the people he's been advised to appoint, and from those people he picks who he wants and sends that list to Parliament. Parliament then vets the people that have been nominated, and then if you have been recommended by the Commission, appointed by the President, and approved by Parliament, you become a judge of the High Court. That's the traditional route appoints magistrates.
After advertising.
Whatever method they want to use, but it's usually after advertising. Now, that is how judges are appointed. But in 1995, the wise men of 1995, I see Dr. KARUGANGA, one of them said, this method may be good, but let us have another method as well. So they inserted 142.2, and they gave three scenarios, and it says, where A, the office of the Justice of the Supreme Court or Justice of Appeal or a Judge of the High Court is vacant. So if there's a vacancy. B, a Judge of the High Court, Justice of the Supreme Court, or Judge of the Court of Appeal is unable to perform the functions of his or her office. So maybe the office holder is there but has COVID, or has gone for study leave, or has been involved in an accident and is unable to come to work. So there's a vacancy, or there's an office holder who is unable to perform for any reason. And then C, the Chief Justice advises the Judicial Service Commission that the state of the business of the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, or High Court so requires. Backlog, for example. That the business is such that the available hands are unable to finish it. The framers thought of that in 1995 and said, the President may, acting on the advice of the Judicial Service Commission, appoint a person qualified for appointment as a Justice of the Supreme Court, or Justice of Appeal, or a Judge of the High Court, to act as such Justice or Judge, even though that person has already attained the age prescribed for retirement. A person appointed under Clause 2 of this article to act as a Justice of the Supreme Court, or Justice of Appeal, or Judge of the High Court shall continue to act for the period of the appointment. Now, it then goes on to list who is a person qualified, and that, for example, is an advocate. So our understanding of this provision is that in its plain and ordinary meaning, when the courts are either empty or stretched, call upon people qualified for a specified period of time. So that camp you're talking about, those 3,000 surgeries you're talking about, the framers in 95, we've never done it, but in 95, where people were debating the Constitution, they thought of it. They said, you can appoint, but what happens if the state of the business so requires? What happens if the manpower you have is unable to deal with the challenge? So they insert this provision in the Constitution, and basically the idea, my understanding of the idea, is attack the backlog. at one point, bring in the lawyers, they sit down, and they hear this. Now, it has taken a while for people to come to terms with what people saw in 95. You can imagine the foresight in 95. So we don't need any amendment of anything. We don't need any statute of anything. Somebody already put it on paper, and all we need is a what did you call it? A grand medical camp. Now we don't need Mandela. Yeah, and if you look at the cost, if you just look at the cost of one judge is a moving health center. So even at the same salary, because it's not a lifetime appointment, even at the same salary, without the car, without the bodyguard, without all the facilities that are required, someone can just get deployed and get the job done. So when you speak the way you've been speaking, what you're speaking is music to our ears, because ultimately, and this is where I completely agree with you, doctor, the number one consumer must be the customer. Must be your mother, who is coming from Oyam and going to Kabale. That everything must be done to make sure that she is served. That the court must turn itself from a building into a service. Yeah, and that we must have these grand health camps. You know, and so when you come here and you say what you have said is what we call music to our ears, because we've been trying to make this argument. I was recently somewhere, and some fellow was telling me that maybe I don't want to continue my argument with the fellow, but some fellow was telling me that no, the what did he call it? The cure, the property in the article. You know, and not realizing that the individual Ugandans are our primary target audience. But the other thing which you've said, and I see the Vice President of the ULS is here. He's actually the person in charge of legal aid, and he has been here explaining a lot of legal aid. But you've spoken a lot about the challenges that young doctors were having, and I can tell you the similarities with young lawyers are striking. When you're talking about suicide, when you're talking about mental health, right now, this year alone, 3,000 people qualify to be enrolled as advocates. In the year 2025, 3,000. Just to give you an understanding of what that number means for lawyers, the current council of the Vice President, Mr. Asimwe, and of the President, Isaac Semakade, by the time they were voted in, which is last year, there were 6,000 lawyers in Uganda. So 50% of the bar qualified this year. Now, if you think about it, Dr. KARUGANGA, who is here, qualified in 1973. So 52 years ago. Yeah? So for 52 years, because that was the second class to qualify at LDC. The first class, I think, was 1972 or 71. So 54 years ago. It has taken us 54 years, it took us 53 years to raise 6,000 people as lawyers. And this year, we have 3,000. Now, of the 3,000, the process that was clearing us for 54 years is the same that gets them enrolled. So they are used to enrolling 200 people, 900 people, 500 people. Now they are enrolling 3,000 people. So they've done more than they've ever done before. They have only been able to enroll 1,000. What does that mean? That means only 1/3 of people qualified to be lawyers have actually entered the role. 2/3 are waiting for bureaucratic processes to enter. And then when they enter, there are all these challenges. Now, that is 3,000. The number can only go up as opposed to going down. So when you talk about the stress of that young doctor, everything you've said about the young doctor, calling you, Mr. Asimwe is here, he will testify that many mothers are calling him, telling him to talk to their daughters and sons not to kill themselves. Alfred here runs a thing he calls Dear Young Lawyer, with joy actually, They already think called Dear Young. They also claim they're young. So they run this thing called they run this thing called Dear Young Lawyer, where everything you've said speaks to the condition of this, and it shows that because sometimes some of the arguments we have in the law society are really small, yet some of the challenges we have are really big. And I think you've shown us the big challenges. And I think my long winding question, how do we get into the big arguments? One of the big challenges we've had with adoption of Article 142.2, in my view it's a big argument, is that many of these people want to argue about the small things, but when it comes to this big thing, they want to say, someone said they could never have envisaged.
Thank you. I was about to lose my point, because your points were very, very, very important. Now, you know, you've come to the most important part of it, of the whole idea, using the Pareto rule, meaning that if you are to focus the 80-20 rule, Pareto principle, if you are to solve a problem in a society, the game changer things would include solving like that one. You know that if you solve that problem of backlog, you will inevitably have a domino, some sort of implementation research, testing them in one court circuit, okay? And then, of course, public service, which we have talked about, and then reforms. Now, the how, you know, last time when we were at the pre-AGM, there is a framework, in the policy sciences we have these abstract frameworks, which I'm sure in law also exist. This framework is called the 3 P's framework. The other important framework is the 3 I's framework. Let me start with the 3 P's. The 3 P's is also called the multiple streams. It's a fundamental framework we use in the policy sciences. John Kingdon. His paper is called, I think, Agenda, Alternatives and Public Policy. We applied it during our industrial action and it worked. The problem is usually framed very well. In this instance, everybody from a different perspective. They want to receive justice, has received it from, has touched the elephant and said, you know, actually this is a trunk. The law, senior counsel. Now, what is the third P? So the problem is the first P in the 3 P's framework. The policy or proposals is the second P. The third one is the politics. The politics. This banging the table is part to create what called a focusing event. When some academics with the people are all in suits and becoming clever blacks. Black suits show judiciary, and we saw the judges, are they less than 100 still? Yes. There's 100. Then you can never finish. Working the politics, that's where the 3 I's framework comes in, by John Lewis and others. Interests are number 1 in the first I. In the judiciary to do its work. What are the interests of the speaker, who is in charge of allocating money? What are the interests of the prime minister, who is in charge of government business, to produce this policy, present it in the cabinet and defend it in parliament? What are the interests of the president? What are the interests of the powerful businessmen who want their cases judged? And what are the interests of highly interested but weak stakeholders, the general public? So interests become, and then the second I is ideas. What ideas or innovations do you have? Alternative dispute resolution can reduce the backlog, but it's also not cheap. This is what I discovered. It is not that court. It's not that court in the village where guys, you know, like President Kagame was very innovative. He realized the problem. He said, you know what? Some of these things must be tried by the equivalent of an LC. You know, people agree, and as long as there are these conditions met, then we pass judgment. So that innovation is needed in health sector. Last time I gave an example of prescription. So that innovation is needed in health sector. Last time I gave an example of prescription. Prescription is governed by the Medical and Dental Practitioners Act and the Allied Health Professionals Act. The Allied Health Professionals Act came in later, when we realized there are a few doctors, we said, oh, clinical officers can also prescribe certain drugs. But then there were no clinical officers or doctors up country. And the people who take care of cancer patients are really palliative care nurses. So we had to adjust the law to allow palliative care nurses to prescribe a very important painkiller called morphine. So what are those things you are going to task shift, call it task shifting, in a legal way to grade 1 magistrate? And when you task shift to the grade 1 magistrate, now these are the ideas. These are the ideas in the 3 actions. What are you, how are you going to skill you now? If you tour Yumbe Hospital, it's far there. You say, hey, the NRM actually has worked on that one. You know? Then you go to Kayunga. They erected a hospital there. In my own constituency, okay, they erected 10 health center 3s. You know, until I went down and I saw, hey, so what now is needed is what? Post doctors, post medicine. That, you know what I mean? They are telling us according to figures, I don't know that we are feeling it. The other thing is the population is growing. So perhaps what you can do as part of your operations research in the Law Society, together with the Judicial Service Commission, because the Health Service Commission does it. How many lawyers do you have relative to the population? What is the backlog relative to the left to the leadership? In such a job, is he movable and so on? So they are set for life. They cannot think for the profession. I wanted to you say, what was your success during that time? You know, teamwork was very important. And I wanted to praise your president, who has remained loyal. You know, to have a loyal vice president, the man could have easily taken over. But he's loyal because that loyalty has kept the institution going. You know, also when there is kavuyo, you crumble. And then integrity, very important, transparency, but more important, solidarity. At Entebbe there, this is the thing, collegiality. We must not always be in suits and arguing cases. And this is the solidarity we are talking about. I would see the senior lawyers. I also met my very young lawyers who had just graduated, and I met my classmates of the Vanguard Nicholas Opio is interested in particular aspects.
You're just joining us, your legs. We are about to wind up on the judicial service conversations. Maybe I'll just add one thing, Doctor. In the last 4 years, the budget of the judiciary
Uganda by half, and we achieved double the target. How was that? And that, and the 50% of the money was going. But once he removed that, we achieved more for less. So it's possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. And
maybe it's okay.
thank you, Doctor. So interestingly, I think you've given us very many interesting ideas, and it's fair to say that if you look at what you've just told us, it is not fair to say that it's just money that's coming. There are a lot of interventions the judiciary has thought of. They have thought of plea bargaining, they have thought of starting small claims court, they have thought of increasing the jurisdiction of magistrates, they have introduced a strong ADR, they have built more courts, there are more judges now in Uganda than they've ever been, they've deployed more judges across, they've gone to parliament to increase the numbers. But the challenge keeps growing, and that's why we are saying we need to look at backlog as a war. We need to look at backlog as an enemy and fight it as a war. But we've kept you here long enough. What we usually do on the judicial service conversations is we usually listen from the audience, but I think we've now overshot the time. The audience will forgive us unless there's someone who you have. If there's someone with something urgent or burning, maybe if you could just throw it. I can see the Vice President of the ULS. I don't know if there's... I can see a number of people who are here. We've been given just 5 minutes. If you have anything you want to ask, please ask for the microphone. We'll give you 1 minute, not 5. The 5 includes the answers. So we'll give you 1 minute. Okay, I don't think we have any questions coming from the audience. Is that correct?
I have one.
Okay. Alfred?
Yeah, thank you. I think the only question I had was this one says your leadership journey is inspiring, but you understand that sometimes leadership can be a lonely journey. especially.
Thank you. And this is, it will be my parting shot. Thank you. And this is, it will be my parting shot. You know, there's, I think it's self-discovery. What is it that you want to do? Well, what moves you? Is it a big car, a big house? After that, okay, you've finished all that you needed to do. Is it business and so on? Some people excel in different things. So for me, the joy of me continuing with this is to see at least that together we would work and achieve something small. Yeah, together come up with an idea and achieve it. And my advice to young people is that you must keep going. Those doing it, okay. Those who say it, sayers, okay, take in the advice, but push, because by you want to advance. Because again, you cannot have multiplicity of solutions. If you have 10 solutions, you will spread yourself thin, and the backlog will grow. Choose one or two and say, for us, our focus is to increase judges. You do it for 5 years and treble the bench. Then you say the next 5 years we shall focus on camps. No more increasing judges. You focus on that and say, Karuganga, this is your schedule. This is your schedule. Opio, this is your schedule. You go to Masakaso, this is, okay? And the lawyers say, every day you appear, this is the money. Have we agreed? Okay. Okay? So that kind of focus is very important. But also, once you decide, do not accept to be dissuaded, because even a solution is 100%. You choose what gives you 70%, move with it. And solve Ugandan's problems. Thank you.
Maybe, I think you forgot the first question by answering the last question. There was the question of how you sustain yourself mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
You have to listen to music. You have to go out, take your wife. Me, I go to Old-Timers with my wife. I say, my friend, let's go to Old-Timers and listen to the music of the 1980s. I also spend a lot of time with my children. Their activities, I try to be there. Birthdays, at school, you know, they are going to do this presentation, sports. They be involved in family and also community work. Now that I'm in politics, it's very absorbing. You know, you are attending so many burials, you are listening to problems you can't even solve, but you just sit down with the people and listen to them and encourage them, because the mentality is when you are running, you are somehow BOU. Okay, but you are not. So sometimes just sit down with them and just console them. But being with the people is refreshing. You know, human nature, once you connect, I like to connect a lot. And then all these activities going on that you want to do, you know, whether it be it church, be it a lawyers association you want to, you must engage in something. The other thing, which I borrow from Maggie Kigozi for the young people, she says, when you're a young man, focus on about 3 things. 1, physical fitness. Because once you are physically fit, then you are guaranteed of a healthier life. 2, making money. And that means you have to work. And 3, community service. When you're a young man, you must do those things working very hard. So I think that's what I did in my youth. You know, we used to do basketball, Shotokan, karate, and everything. Nowadays I just walk and maybe take a beer or 2 and regain what I lost. Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for your kind words. For those who are just joining us, as we have said before, you're late. We are finishing up with this conversation. And colleagues, you will agree with me that Dr. Obuku, in him we have seen the rare union of intellect and integrity, of conviction and compassion. He has shown us that leadership is really the burden of care. He has shown us that he is a servant of the public, who knows the weight of broken institutions and the difficult task of mending them, who understands the 3 P's and the 3 I's. we have seen in Doctor a real understanding of the challenges and a camaraderie that this very night he has come to spend, not at a time of elections, at a time of a lot of work, that he has taken time off, and wish you the best in your election. He has taken time off to really come and share with us. So colleagues in the Uganda Law Society, and I see some of you and many of you are on, I think history should record that on this October night, on this late October night, when the Ugandan bar was weary and the lovers of law and the rule of law uncertain, we received a guest, a doctor, who brought us not just medicine, but vision, who came not with bandages, but with belief, and who told us that those who say it can't be done should not interrupt those who are doing it. Thank you so much, Doctor. And to the Law Society members, on this late October night, while everything is uncertain, please remember that the lawyer who brought the doctor, when you go to vote, please remember that the lawyer who brought the doctor was none other than the lawyer's lawyer, ELISON KARUGANGA. And when we finally overcome what I believe is one of the most unfortunate judicial obstacles, when finally we overcome what I believe is one of the most unfortunate judicial obstacles, and you're alone in your voting basin, please, colleagues, when you're alone in that basin, remember the wise, clear words of Mr. Matovu in that epic song, Oli Mujawa Musaja Singanze.
Just a minute.